Hello and welcome to this AQR QRCA pre-event hangout. It's absolutely fantastic to be joined by Nikki Lavoie. Nikki, thank you very much for joining me. Do you first of all like to give a brief introduction to yourself?
I'm an American market researcher who has been living in Paris for the last 3 years. I focus primarily on qualitative research and do a little bit of everything in terms of industries and organizations, and that's it.
First thing I want to know is, obviously, you and I are both going to this event, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the benefits for attending this event? You know, why would a qual researcher want to go to this event in Budapest?
Sure. Well, the first thing for me is kind of obvious, which is that it's the focus on qualitative. Because a lot of times when I go to some of the bigger events, obviously I'm interested in new methodologies, you know, spanning market research in general. And I don't want to only focus on qual, but sometimes I feel like qual kind of gets slipped a little bit under the rug here and there. So it's really great to have a conference or two that's really focused on that discipline. And the second thing is, I think, for me, the benefit is the size, because some of the conferences are really big, and it's great because you can network and meet a lot of people, but at the same time, you don't really connect with the material that's being presented to you. You might see a great presentation, and then the person that was presenting kind of is a celebrity, and they're mobbed by people, and you really can't get close to that person to ask more questions. And an event this size is really great because you can still network and meet new people, but at the same time, you're a lot closer to the presenters. You've got the ability to ask more questions and to follow up if something really piqued your interest. So I think that's a really big benefit for me.
Okay, so we're saying it's the intimacy that this event has that's kind of maybe a benefit over some of the others that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's not too small, because there are some that are really small and you kind of feel like, you know, okay, hey, there's about 10 people in the room, and if like one person, you know, has a really strong opinion or, you know, sets the mood off, then that can really change things. So it's not too small. It's Goldilocks, you know, just right in the middle.
Okay, so it's my understanding that you're presenting a paper at this event, and it's got a very international feel to it, which kind of fits with one of the themes of the event, which I think is, you know, very, very inclusive and very international itself. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your paper?
Sure. So my paper is actually focusing on the different ways in which qualitative researchers approach qual based on the cultural differences that we all have and the cultural backgrounds that we all kind of bring to the table. So I've done some research previously on things like how cultural differences affect the respondents, and I've heard some really interesting papers and presentations in the past year about the importance of respecting cultural differences when it comes to forming new methodologies, but no one's really talked about the fact that we as researchers also experience cultural differences as well. So I've been taking the time in the last couple of weeks to do some research on researchers, I guess I would say, and I've been qualitatively interviewing qualitative researchers and asking them what they think are the fundamentals of qual research, where does it come from for them, how do they approach analysis, how do they approach a methodological question, in order to understand, you know, what are kind of some of the, if there are any, what are some of the regional differences and similarities to the way we approach qual research.
Okay. That sounds really interesting. And so whereabouts in the globe are we talking about here? Where's these influences spanning from?
So far, I've got people on board from North America, US and Canada, Europe, obviously, because that's a little bit easier for me. So some people from UK, from France, from Spain. I've also pulled in some qualitative researchers from Africa, so I'm very happy about that. And I'm hoping, and I'm hoping to try and get over to the other side as well, in terms of Asia, Australia, New Zealand, but I'm kind of running up against my deadline. I could ask everyone about this because it's really an interesting topic, so I could go on forever, but fortunately for me, they've set a deadline, so I need to try and interview as many people as I can before that deadline.
Okay, brilliant. And so with regards to other papers that are at this event, have any kind of caught your eye? Have any really interested you?
Yeah, well, Daniel Burkle's presenting a paper. Well, he's a regular presenter. He knows the drill, and he's presenting on some specific ideas and different ways to approach ethnography, which I find is really interesting, especially for me from the whole international and cultural differences thing. I find that ethnography is one of those methods that's really, really great when you're trying to, you know, respect those cultural differences, but still have, you know, the bigger learnings. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then as well, actually the one that you have already posted an interview about in terms of talking about respondents with disabilities, I've been reading a lot about minority respondents and how we're missing, you know, a really big, because we think minority and we think, oh, they're a small piece of the puzzle, but when you think of how many groups are considered minorities, there's a lot, and we're actually missing, you know, a big piece of the important puzzle in terms of who our consumers are, what their preferences are, and everything. So I'm really excited to see that one too.
Yeah, I was really interested in that one because I haven't been in market research for a tremendously long amount of time, but I hadn't really heard about anything to do with that, you know, reaching disabled participants. So is that something that's quite unique?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's the first time that I've heard about it. I mean, just before I saw the interview that you posted, I had read an article that was more talking about reaching racial minorities and sexual orientation minorities. So when you need to talk to, you know, LGBT type groups and the methods that you need to think about, and, you know, the other considerations you need to think about. And the articles that I've read have been really interesting because, of course, it's you know, it is unique. It's not something that, you know, I've been working in research for about 7 years, and it's not something that I've been asked by a client to do, but it's almost one of those things that you want to say to the client, okay, well, have you considered, you know, how much of your consumer base are actually these types of respondents? Because very often the way we conduct our research and the respondents we screen for, we do that in order to make the research convenient. But it's great to have, you know, focus group where you can get a bunch of people in the same room, but if you don't really consider who is unable to attend that focus group and how important that their voices might be, that could have a really big impact on, you know, the bottom line for the clients. So
sure. So are we kind of saying then that if you work harder, you know, to reach those harder to reach participants, then I don't know, you could maybe have some kind of richer data to get back, as opposed to maybe taking an easier option?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's the case. It's one of those things that I've also been hearing quite a lot of in my interviews that I'm doing for my paper, even though I'm not talking specifically about respondents with disabilities, but I am talking about different approaches. And there's a lot of feedback around the idea that sometimes we are just asked to do the easiest possible type of research. You know, okay, we want to talk to 50 people, we only have this much money, they're spread all over the globe, let's do an online bulletin board, or whatever it might be. And we might not be thinking about what we really need to achieve at the end. And so I think this is one of those things that falls under the same umbrella that, yeah, there can be a lot more richness in terms of the data that you get if you allow for an open discourse in terms of what the methodology should be. And that's kind of a problem that we all know that exists. A lot of our clients just come to us and say, I want you to do this for this amount. Bye.
It was absolutely great talking to you, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you and your paper in Budapest.
Thanks. Likewise. It was great talking to you.